There's often fallout that occurs a couple of months after the crisis. And oftentimes people rush in when the heat is on, and then once the heat dies down, we all pull out and we're on to the next crisis. But that's typically when trauma kicks in. What on earth just happened here? And how did it happen? And what are the implications? And so where to next? And so when people have got questions and there's confusion, we like to bring clarity and help people order their thoughts for sound mental health and emotional well-being.
Hey, what's up, everybody? Welcome to the Pound for Pound Leader podcast. I'm your host, mikekai, and it is a privilege and honor to have you on our podcast. Thank you so much for hitting that subscribe button and making sure you're getting all the latest details about what's going on with the Pound for Pound Leader podcast at mikekai.tv. And I also want to tell you that I'm coming out with a free webinar coming out here in the next week called Crown Your Year, and you'll find that on mikekai.tv. How do you end your year with a bang? How do you put a cap and a crown on 2023 so you get momentum going into 2024? So I want to highly encourage you to go to mikekai.tv and go register for the free webinar that I'd love for you to be on. Lisa's going to join me as well, and we'd love to have you. In fact, go to our YouTube and subscribe at mikekai. Add some comments to it that are positive and healthy and affirming. We'd love to have you. Speaking of positive, healthy, and affirming, today my special guest is Dr. Robbie Sonderegger. Dr. Robbie is the founder of People Care, very, very important ministry with an app helping people in their mental health space. But also, Dr. Robbie is not just a good friend of mine. He's also internationally recognized as a clinical psychologist. His educational curriculums are used in 25 different nations across the globe. He is known for taking psychology from the front line to the home front. He's a speaker, innovator, and expert consultant in people systems. Dr. Robbie works with corporations, governments, churches, universities and schools, and humanitarian agencies. His website is www.drrobi.com. It'll be in the show notes. And join us today and get ready, because this is a very in-depth and delightful conversation that I'm having about Maui. We're talking about mental health. We're talking about social media, AI, and the Army. Join us on this podcast. Dr. Robbie, welcome to the podcast.
So great to be back with you, Pastor Mike.
Yeah, it's been almost a year and a half?
Yeah, almost 2 years.
Almost 2 years.
Yeah.
Great. Just in time for my annual checkup, my mental health checkup.
Yes. Check up from the neck up.
Exactly. Check yourself before you wreck yourself, whatever it is. We're so glad to have you as one of the founders of People Care, or in fact, the founder of People Care. It's a perfect time to have you here in Hawaii.
Thank you. It's great to be here, and it's good for my mental health as well to be here.
Amen.
Especially in Honolulu.
Especially. Now, speaking about going to Honolulu, you're headed to Lahaina later on this week.
Yeah.
Tell us what you're going to do there.
Well, obviously, with the crisis that Maui has experienced, there's often fallout that occurs a couple of months after the crisis. Oftentimes people rush in when the heat is on, and then once the heat dies down, we all pull out and we're on to the next crisis. But that's typically when trauma kicks in. And so I look forward to going down there and just really encouraging, equipping, and empowering some of the leaders to know, well, how do we actually work with people who might be struggling in the aftermath of having lost property, or even family members, or even just being so confused about what on earth just happened here, and how did it happen, and what are the implications, and so where to next? And so when people have got questions and there's confusion, we like to bring clarity and help people order their thoughts for sound mental health and emotional well-being.
I know you're going to be a big help to the people of Maui, especially a lot of the churches, like 8 different churches that we've been working with, 2 to 3 different relief organizations, and now organizations that are just homegrown all of a sudden, that are starting to rebuild homes, or in fact, maybe build homes or tiny homes in order to put them on other people's property or in their driveways. Because some people have been housing 18 to 30 different people,
wow,
in their living rooms, and it's taxing on the family that's hosting them. But I'm sure it's a blessing. So I think you're going to find some amazing people there when you get there.
I hope so. And when people are hungry because they've got questions and
there's a lot of questions.
Answers are, well, not necessarily that we've got the answers necessarily, but when we go on a search together, people are more open, and whatever you go through, they discover we can actually grow through. And this tragedy doesn't have to be a setback. It could actually be a setup for a step up, and we can go from strength to strength.
Awesome. I just want to tell you that from me being on the inside, sort of on the outside, sort of on the inside of what happened in Lahaina, I just want to know, not I want to know, but I want to tell you that we're talking about why wasn't the alarm sounded?
Yeah.
Why wasn't the water released for the firefighters to be able to fight their way in and out and put out a lot of the fire? Why wasn't the mayor available? Why was everybody on Oahu or on vacation on that same week? So there's a lot of frustration. Yeah. And not only that, but also the possibility that they may never get their land back. The governor said that it would be turned into workforce housing, prematurely speaking out crazy things. And so I'm glad that you're going there, because there are people who are definitely not just traumatized by what took place, but the aftermath of what took place. And
not only why it took place, but what are the consequences of this now that things come to light? Where's the follow through, and is there justice in this? Yeah. There are big questions that people have when tragedy strikes.
Huge. So when this happened, and a couple of weeks after it, I don't know how we connected. Did you reach out to me, or I reach out to you?
Both you and your wife Lisa reached out and said, "Hey, Robbie, is there any resources that you have? What can we do? How can we help?" And so we started a conversation to explore ways in which we could best serve.
And your schedule became open perfectly for this time, and talked to different organizations and churches about you coming in and doing this mental health seminar, for lack of a better word, to help the first responders, which are actually not just police and firefighters who've done their best, not just some government workers or a lot of government workers that have done their best, but I'm also talking about churches that really opened up their sanctuaries and their buildings in order to get people inside who still don't have a place to live. So it's powerful. So where do you get this experience and expertise from? Where does this come from?
I got to tell you, it's one of my all-time favorite things to do, to come on in. I mean, I'm a doctor in clinical psychology, and my area of specialization is trauma. So we've been working around the world for the past couple of decades, equipping and empowering communities in the aftermath of whether it be natural disaster or man-made disaster or war and civil conflict, or even these days with, survivors of human trafficking. There's no shortage of disaster, it would seem. But one of my favorite things to do is to come and equip those first responders, because even though we're training them up to know how to help others, inevitably in the process, they themselves get helped. They themselves learn a thing or two to be able to process their own thoughts and their own emotions, to respond in much more healthy ways, not just cope, reaching for the next device that's going to help numb the pain, but rather, how can I do this in a healthy way that promotes stability both within my family and my community, and also in my own thoughts and emotional well-being.
So where are the places that you've been, just for the audience? Like, I've been to this place, this part of the world after this happened, and you feel comfortable sharing a couple of those?
Yeah, sure. Like we've traveled around the world, as you can imagine, over the last couple of decades. But just in this last year, we've been to Eastern Europe, we've been to the Middle East, we've been to dealing with the earthquake. Post-earthquake crisis in Turkey and Syria, and in training up leaders in Egypt. We've been down to South America, training up leaders in how to work with Afghanistani refugees who are coming across after Brazil opened up the borders and gave everyone, permanent visas, basically, if you can make it there. It's not the closest place to come to. Wow. But of course, people coming from war-torn areas have certain baggage that they may arrive with, and so how to equip and empower those people who are going to resettle them into communities, teach them language, and empower them possibly with financial opportunities to get employment or start business. Well, we also need to deal with the dust that might be kicked up in that process, not just from where I come from, but even the trip in getting there. It can be quite traumatic. And so it's exciting to be a part. And of course, wherever there's a war zone, well, we're probably there too.
Wow. So there's probably a couple of levels, maybe more than 2 levels, but I'm thinking 2 levels. The first level is the people who have been hurt or caught in the crossfire, who have lost lives, loved ones, or property. Okay, so you have them.
Yes.
So you have to minister to them.
Yes.
But also you have the guys who have to minister to those people.
Yes, the
who
first
walk
responders.
away seeing what they never thought they'd ever see before, smelling what they never thought they'd smell before.
Exactly.
And so how does that work for you guys between that two tiers? If I'm sure there's more, but with those two tiers.
Yeah, so one we can talk about as early intervention and prevention. So it might be a case of critical incident and stress debriefing when you are in the heat or in the fireplace. How do we protect ourselves so that we don't get burned? And so there's some great life skills that people can develop. But the other is rehabilitation. So once we have been burned, well, how do we treat those, not physical wounds per se, but mental and emotional wounds that may linger long after the fire is gone, in the form of flashbacks, memories, nightmares, which have an interesting way of pervading into my waking day, where I'm thinking and meditating and dwelling on these things like sticky thoughts that I just can't shake from my head. And then that, of course, is going to spill over into my work life and my physical health and my relationships. And so wait, we need to stop. We need to press pause and not just cope with this, but learn how to pull the vehicle over, so to speak, and fix the tire that might be flat.
Would you call this grief?
There's grief that's part of it.
Okay.
Definitely.
Are there different stages that you've noticed that are consistent throughout the world, out of these war zones or out of these tragedies like wildfires like just happened?
Yes and no. So in psychological circles, we've got often these, taglines, there's 5 stages of grief, and then somebody else will come and, there's 12 stages, 21 stages of grief. Well, everyone actually is quite different. However, grief is constant. So if you've lost, whether it be a loved one or lost your livelihood, or have lost or your country, that you're displaced, whether internally in terms of your land, your community, or externally having to be a refugee in another distant land, there's grief that goes along with that, because it's not just the land you've lost. You've lost the language, you've lost the culture, you've lost your family connections and everything that went along with that. And so definitely grief can manifest in a variety of different ways. And there's actually, you might be interested in this, there's good research out of the University of Sydney, where I come from in Australia.
Yeah, mate.
Yeah, mate. Crikey.
Crikey.
That shows that grieving widows, for example, a third of them roughly go on and develop physical health problems as a result of their grief. And a third of them go on to develop psychiatric or mental health challenges as a result of their grief. And 1/3 go on to develop no physical or mental health problems at all.
Okay.
And so, of course, researchers wanted to know, well, what is it about this last group of people? And what they discovered was surprising. It wasn't that they had kids to look after or a job to go back to. It wasn't even that they had a community that they belonged to, for example, a church, or even that they believed in God. I mean, I'd love to say something else. I'd love to say, all you need to do is just believe in God and everything's going to be okay. But according to research, actually, no. And which is not surprising, because even the devil believes in God and it doesn't seem to do him much good. But what they discovered for this particular group of people was that they found someone who allowed them to grieve. So in other words, a friend who would come alongside them and not be afraid to ask the hard questions. And if they were to tear up, oftentimes we go, oh no, I don't want to make them upset. No, they would go there and press those buttons, because whatever comes out makes you feel better. It's like that well-shaken bottle of fizzy drink that if you can just relieve the cap, that pressure comes out. And so that's part and parcel of that healing process associated with grief.
Huge. Because my mom comes in today, and she lost her husband, which is my dad, almost 2 years ago, and she says she hasn't really fully grieved yet. So she'll be with me for 6 months. So it looks like she'll grieve when she's with me, and I want her to be healthy, so I want her to grieve.
So good.
Yeah, I want her to be that 1/3 that doesn't have a physical ailment, that doesn't have a mental challenge. I want my mom to thrive. So.
And we don't need to be anybody's counselor or psychologist. It's not like we're trying to fix anybody, but we're just, if necessary, we cry with them. Because we validate that grief process is an essential component, so long as it doesn't linger.
I wonder if my hesitation, not reluctance, but hesitation, is because if she starts grieving, I'll start grieving again.
It's actually a great thing that you've identified there. And so we know from neuroscience that we have mirror neurons, so pockets of brain cells that light up when we see somebody else going through something. Our brain processes as though we are the one who is going through it. And so there's this natural instinct to not want to upset anyone because, well, in so doing, it will upset us also. And so we kind of tiptoe around it and be careful not to. But if we are brave enough and courageous enough to allow somebody to grieve, well, actually, it does us both good in the process. But once again, so long as we don't linger there, so long as we're not scratching the rash or keeping wounds alive.
Are you ready to take 2023 and still make it your best year yet? Catapult yourself into 2024 with unstoppable momentum? Then the opportunity is still here, and we've crafted the perfect roadmap just for you. We're excited to extend a special invitation to you for a free live coaching session featuring myself and my beautiful wife, Lisa, as we unveil the secrets of Crown Your Year. Crown Your Year is a free live coaching session designed to supercharge the end of your year, drawing inspiration from Psalm 65:11 that says, "You crown your year with goodness and make your paths drip with abundance." Don't let this amazing year-end opportunity pass you by. Secure your spot today at mikekai.tv and invite a friend to join you in the journey of empowerment. We're eagerly looking forward to joining you at this year's Crown Your Year. So good. I'm so glad you're going to Maui.
Yeah.
I'm glad that you're here. So let's just switch gears.
Yeah.
If you don't mind. I got a couple of questions here. What are the recent trends, Dr. Robbie, in the mental health sphere that you're seeing today or foresee will be a trend or concern in the future?
Great question. And I think probably the biggest trend of all is that mental health is on decline, in rapid decline. And I say that because when we talk about mental health, if you were to go out onto the street and ask the average Joe, hey, what's the first thing that comes to mind when you hear the term mental health? No one describes health. They describe illness. They'll say, oh, depression or anxiety or addiction or relationship breakdown or whatever it might be. Which is kind of strange because, well, we wouldn't do that with our physical health. We wouldn't, hey, what's the first thing that comes to mind when you hear of physical health? No one would say broken leg or a global pandemic. Right. No, we start describing healthy things, energy and vibrancy and feel good in my body. And so I think there's a trend in the world today that whenever we hear the term mental health, we think of pathology. And definitely our mental health is in decline, not on the increase. And it doesn't matter where you look or which demographic, age-wise. Older people, younger people, post-COVID, we are continuing on a down spiral.
Post-COVID. So what do you find common denominators of people that are thriving in the midst of, even though maybe struggling a little bit? What's the common denominator of why these guys are making it and why these guys aren't?
I think it would be too easy to just, reach for the catchphrase hot topics that we talk about, which is, well, we're more isolated than we've ever been, and COVID exacerbated that, and we were locked down. And I think definitely it's played a role, but well beyond that, because we are back, society, we've bounced back, but we haven't necessarily bounced back in our mental health and emotional well-being. So we have to ask those hard questions. What else is going on? And we see identity in decline, where there's more identity confusion than ever before. Mm-hmm. We see people with a lack of purpose and meaning in their life, and so they're grappling for something to fight for or fight against, just to be able to give their life meaning, which is a desperate, travesty unto itself. And then we've got a lifestyle that it's so unhealthy that it's almost like we are intentionally setting ourselves up for a fall. Like we could talk for 3 weeks on this topic and not even exhaust that first question.
So is there a common characteristic between the group that does and the group that doesn't?
Well, there's definitely characteristics between those people who recover from tragic incidences and those who don't, core character strengths that we would describe. And we are recognizing through research now there's definitely characteristics, for example, for those people who identify with a meaningful purpose to live for, not just to fight against.
Yeah.
So that there's these solid foundations. So they're able to ask and answer the questions, who am I?
Okay.
Why am I here?
Yeah.
And what am I worth? So who am I speaks of identity.
Yeah.
Why am I here speaks of purpose. And what am I worth speaks of esteem or confidence. And if we don't have the trifecta, we're going to be lost and spinning. It's like a three-legged stool. That's what it takes to make the stool stable. But if you've only got one or two legs, that thing cannot stand.
Wow.
They're all interconnected.
Next question. What do you see as the most pressing mental health issue facing society today? As a psychologist, how would you prioritize addressing them?
It's such a big question. I don't even know where to start. Like if sometimes in my dream state, just before when you're drowsy, just before you fall asleep, you wonder, if you could wave a magic wand, or if you were president of the United States, or even just advisor to the president, like what would you say? What would you encourage, policymakers or decision makers to pay attention to or be aware of, and what decisions could you make that could promote mental health? And I think right off the bat, I would have a memorandum on what on earth are we putting into our mouths, because everything that we eat is medicine. We're either medicating our brain up or medicating our brain down. And the United States is a unique phenomena in the world. I would outright ban high fructose corn syrup across the board. Like what on earth is going on in America? It's like we know all of the information and we do exactly the opposite. And not only that, but we run around, pretending as though, well, this is good for us. Let's kick out all of the prayer in schools, and let's make sure that we reintroduce some other things that will bring about influence and confusion in young children's identity, and then think that that's going to somehow bode well and we're protecting people, or that's some kind of philosophical enhancement. That's some special kind of stupid. Like that is next level.
Absolutely.
Like the rest of the world's looking on in America going, what are you guys lost the plot?
Hold
or
on
something?
a minute. Let me push back. Okay.
Okay.
Isn't that already happening in Sydney before? Like Australia, wasn't it socialist before America's turning socialist?
Yes and no.
Europe is already woke.
So
America's getting there in the last 10 years.
I think whatever happens in America's the land of the extremes. Okay. So we blow a trumpet that's louder than anywhere else. Okay. So it might be simmering, underneath the surface.
When America, what is it, catches a cold, another country sneezes.
That's right.
Something like that.
Whatever happens in America, so goes the rest of the world.
Yeah.
And now we're seeing it's almost licensed now to be able to come out from underneath the coals. And well, if America's on fire, let's light the place on fire too.
I agree with you. I couldn't agree with you more. What's the role that social media is playing in the whole mental health situation?
Research is pretty clear on the amount of time that we spend scrolling, and not just in our echo chambers, reinforcing our ideologies and making us upset and angry about certain things, which, gives us, fake purpose, a cause to fight for, so to speak. So we can divide those lines and say, well, I'm standing on this side and now I'm fighting against something which gives my life meaning. And so when you have no purpose that's functional, and you cannot survive or be mentally healthy in that space, you'll look for something to fight for because it will give your life a certain level of
Have you studied
meaning.
Algorithms? Or do you know much about the algorithms and how that works?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
Tell me what you know.
It's kind of scary. Well, the echo chambers that we are put into, so to speak, reinforce our ideologies and create what we refer to in psychology as an immature mindset. So we end up being black and white in our thinking. So it's all or it's nothing. It is or it isn't. It's wicked or it's wonderful, but there's no in between. And we call that an immature mindset because that's how children think, particularly before the age of about 6 or 7. So if you give a child an ice cream, they go, what is this? This is amazing. I will do anything to get more of this because I like it. But if you put a Brussels sprout in front of that child, they're like, I would rather get in trouble and sit here for 3 hours than actually put that thing in my mouth. Like, I am not eating that thing. And so it is or it isn't. I like it or I don't. And so we draw these lines, but that's immature. We don't have concrete thinking as mature adults, or at least we shouldn't. To be emotionally mature is to look at life through an abstract lens and go, well, I might not know it all. I might not have all of the information. Perspective really counts. So let me make sure that I take a step back from my ideology and look at things from different angles. So maybe even I should put myself in your shoes for a moment and consider things from your perspective before I judge you or before I draw a line in the sand. And so as we create these echo chambers and as we create these dividing lines, we're not only warring against each other, but we end up causing war within ourselves. It's soul destroying.
Well, it's interesting. It's not just war within ourselves, but it's even possible that sometimes social media could be the cause of revolution or the cause of war. It's a weapon now.
Yeah.
Social media is a weapon, that governments can control and maybe use to manipulate different countries.
Yes. And we've seen that even within countries.
Yeah. Right. Like ours.
Yep.
Divided our country.
Yeah.
Okay. So let me ask you, so social media. So I got an Instagram account.
Yeah.
Okay. I watch YouTube instead of the news. I like who I like. I'll subscribe. Okay. If I don't agree with you, I'm not subscribing. Why would I waste my time? Why would I want to fill my inbox with all your stuff? Right. Okay. So what's a good amount if I'm on an Instagram? What's a good amount to scroll? Like what, 5 minutes? How much productivity did it steal from me for the next 20 minutes or 30 minutes? Can I multitask? Is it working? What about staff members here that are always checking their Instagram account? I can tell why you already liked it and it's 10 a.m. in the morning. Anyway, keep going. Tell me, what do you think about that? Time.
A really great question for us to be able to ask ourselves is, are we leaders or are we followers? Now, Jesus, he had a following. And so wherever he went, people would follow him. And so, well, if you're on social media, you've got a following as well, but are you leading? Or are you just posting pictures of cats and coffee and in the rest of the time you're consuming? And so if you're a leader, what are you doing with your followership? What contribution are you making that might be valuable to another person's life? So we're also focused on how much time is a good time for me to be able to consume, but maybe we should re-ask the question, well, if I'm going to go on social media, what if I was to invest that time on contributing in a positive and a powerful way? What can I do that would actually be of positive benefit to somebody else? Because catch this.
You're talking about a post, right?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. Or in some way encouraging others or commenting on others' feeds to be able to lead them, steer them, guide them into healthy places. And I look at this and I think, well, if we were making a valuable contribution to the life of another, well, value is the same as the term worth. Self-worth is the same as the term self-esteem. And self-esteem is the pathway to self-confidence. So in a day and age where we know the more that we consume social media, the less confident we become, probably because of FOMO, fear of missing out on seeing everyone else's, highlight reels. And so there's a push to say, well, we need to post real life. No, don't post me your real life. I don't want to see your bad coffee, your bad hair, and your bad, relationship. No, sure, give me your highlights so that I can praise God for something, but I don't want to just consume. I want to make an intentional effort to contribute, and that's the game-changing question.
Dr. Robbie, how do you build your own self-esteem?
There's two ways of looking at it. So in psychology, we've got this thing called self-consciousness. And to be self-conscious, typically if we were to ask anybody, on the street and put a camera in front of their face and a microphone and say, can you please tell us what is the definition to be self-conscious? Well, in that moment, they will experience self-consciousness, at least from one half perspective. So we call that public self-consciousness. In other words, they are concerned, am I going to get the answer right? Like if I give a good answer, will people think that I'm smart? If I give a bad answer, will people think I'm stupid? So we are publicly self-conscious, conscious of what the public think of me. But there's a whole other half of self-consciousness, which is called private self-consciousness, which is where, well, I don't care so much about what others think of me. What I care about is what I believe in. What do I stand for? And these internal convictions or core character strengths are what should drive me, or at least to a certain extent. Now, there needs to be balance between the two. It's just unfortunate that we are living in a day and age where we are so top heavy in the public self-conscious domain, where I care way too much about what others think of me. So my post will have, 86 likes and 6 comments, and 5 of them will be positive, about my new outfit and my new hairdo, my new shoes. And then somebody will say on that 6th comment, yeah, but you look fat in that. And that one comment wipes me out like a tsunami, all because I'm too lopsided in the public. I need to balance it with private self-consciousness. Private self-consciousness. It's a little bit like this. If you are exclusively focused on public self-consciousness, what other people
public
think,
image?
Yeah, you're a politician.
Okay.
You only do, your policies will be only reflective of what's
Bordering
going to
on
get you the vote.
narcissism?
Yeah. But if you are exclusively privately self-conscious, where you don't care what anyone else thinks, well, you're a dictator. You need to have the balance between the two. The Bible even says our reputation is worth its weight in gold. But let's not be governed by what others think. I want to be governed by something that's much greater than that. What's my inherent value? My value does not come from other people's opinions. I've got to draw from a different well.
Very good. I like that. We're drawing from the wrong wells.
I think so, especially with social media.
Right well, my goodness. Well, I hope you enjoyed that podcast. Thank you so much for joining us on the Pound for Pound Leader podcast. I am your host, Mike Kai. And I just got done interviewing my good friend, Dr. Robbie Sonderegger, all the way from Australia. A nice tidbit for you. He was hired by the royal family, well, I think Princess Diana did, to teach their sons how to ski in Switzerland. And that's what he did. That's his claim to fame, but actually he's great in this space, and I'm sure you got a lot out of it. Hey, I want to tell you about something really, really important. I'm coming up with a thing called Crown Your Year, how to end 2023 with a bang. It's a free webinar. Join us. It's coming up in the next couple of weeks, a week or less, but you got to go to mikekai.tv, and that's where you're going to find it. So make sure you join us. It's a free webinar. How do you end your year with power to get 2024 with momentum rather than giving up on your goals? A lot of people already gave up on their goals. I'll just wait till January. We'll start then, but it's too late to start in January. You got to start now. So join us. Crown your year. It is going to be life-changing, I promise you. And then go to my YouTube and subscribe, please, at Mike Kai for all the latest sermons, content, shorts, longs, all that. Until then, thank you so much for joining me. God bless you and aloha.